This is TWiT.
In other news.
Is there other news?
No.
No, there's no other news.
No other news.
Great show, guys.
Yeah, thanks, everybody. Good night. Yesterday we decided, and I think it was the right decision, to live stream Google's announcement at GDC. Mm-hmm. And on the one hand, they made kind of a significant announcement of this Stadia gaming service, and they had some really interesting technology and ideas. On the other hand, they were completely vague about its availability, its price. They said this year, and in all honesty, they didn't even address the biggest issue, the elephant in the room, which is those ratty little wires that lead from Google servers to your house.
Well, did they even? I didn't watch this, but did they even talk about the cloud part at all? Like, did they actually?
So this is there's a
they were pretty detailed.
They
about
like
that
it. I likened this at the time to what Microsoft's HoloLens announcement was. It was as much a demo of Google's cloud capabilities.
Okay.
Yeah.
As HoloLens is a demo of Azure.
Okay.
It's kind of in this case, a consumer-facing proof of concept for their cloud.
I would argue it's even less than a proof of concept because there's no way to know that this is happening.
Right.
Right.
I mean, they did have a demo.
And that it can happen at scale.
They did the Assassin's Creed Odyssey demo, and the people who used it said, yeah, it's impressive. There's exactly the kinds of occasional glitches. And it was a little ironic that in Google's own stream of this event, there were quite a few glitches.
Right.
So,
Well, here's what I'll say about this thing. I have a lot to say about it, I guess, but just to break it down to kind of a Microsoft-focused thing. We know that Microsoft is working on Project xCloud. What Google just announced is Project xCloud, except it's from Google. And so you have to look at the things that they're adding that Microsoft probably isn't going to do, like the notion of a specialized controller that is connected directly to the network and is, in fact, its own client.
That was a revelation. That's kind of interesting. That solves some of the latency, right?
Yeah. But you also have to look, and then there's things they didn't announce, pricing, actual game companies they're partnering with, actual
showing off Doom content. Is not like
Doom is please. It's just that's,
wow, you got Doom on it, huh? Okay,
Doom runs on an Apple Watch, right?
Yeah.
No, but I mean, look. By the way, they said they have Doom on it. You notice they didn't actually do a gameplay demo of Doom either. But okay, whatever. But when you compare what they're doing to what Microsoft is doing, and once you get past the technical stuff, which is basically identical, the thing that Google is missing is decades of experience in the game industry.
Yeah,
right. Partnering with all of the major game companies.
They have overcome that a little bit by hiring from the game industry people like Jade Raymond, and so
two people. I mean,
I got two people.
No offense, but two people do not success make. I mean, good for them, but there are companies with decades of experience like Microsoft, vested interest like Microsoft, legacy hardware platforms like Microsoft that are going to approach this in a different way in some ways, and from different levels of experience. And so, Microsoft has the chance. I believe what they're going to do is bring forward as much as they can of the backward compatibility game titles that will run in the service as well, preserving your investment in the Xbox ecosystem, which is an incredible advantage over a new service that has 0 games.
Right.
And so we don't know if Google is going to sell games individually and or have a subscription service where you get some selection of games for some kind of a monthly cost. They've never said anything about any of that, so we'll see what that is. But the Microsoft approach is very much Microsoft, right? We have this thing in the past, which we'll call a legacy business, that involves hardware and what we'll call on-prem software. And we're going to offer that while we make a transition to the cloud. And we're going to offer those things side by side. And then eventually we're probably going to go all to the cloud stuff, right? They won't say that now because they don't want to screw up their current business, but that's, I think, what we all agree is going to happen eventually.
And they have announced they're doing this whatever cloud thing.
Yeah.
Brad Sams had the Phil Spencer email that was sent out to the company saying, hey, you ain't seen what we're doing at E3.
They'll have their announcement like this at E3. We kind of already knew that was coming. That's fine. We knew Google was going to announce this, basically. It's as expected. So I think the only surprise to Microsoft was probably that controller. Google is a kind of a goofy company, but every once in a while they do this kind of googly thing where you're like, oh, that's
a good idea.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I think the controller idea was a good idea. is a good idea, especially in this world of heterogeneous cross-platform usage, right? Microsoft obviously has a controller. They can connect it to mobile devices, whatever. But I like the idea of Chromecast on a big screen, and that's your whole setup, and you have a controller.
How easy is that, right?
It's pretty cool. Yeah, and the other thing that became really clear watching this, which I guess I kind of understood intellectually, but you kind of see it and you're like, yeah, okay, this is going to make sense. You know, the reason that some people choose consoles over PCs is that they're less expensive and they're less complex, right? You can always get more on a PC, as more being more frame rate, more graphics quality, higher resolutions, whatever it might be. But there's a great cost to that, both an actual cost and the complexity cost. And, you know, consoles are just easy. You get up and you go and you're off and running. And this thing does that to consoles, doesn't it? Right? It's going to be way cheaper for the end user because there's no upfront hardware cost. It's going to be way simpler. It's going to be way quicker, you know, if everything works out the way they say it's going to. And, you know, one of the problems we have today on a console that will not be a problem on this service, and this cannot be overstated, is the software update problem, where you buy a game, you bring it home, install it off a disk, and you still have 56 gigabytes of updates to install. Or you pre-installed it digitally, and day one arrives, and, oh, sorry, you still have 56 gigabytes. And that 56 gig, or whatever the size, download goes out to every single person in the world with that game. Every single time it gets updated. With this system, it's just like any cloud computing system. You update it once in the cloud, essentially.
Yeah, they also, on the server side, they have this very powerful GPU that NVIDIA, AMD custom designed for them that looked more powerful, frankly, than, I mean, according to their numbers, than an Xbox One X or a PS4.
The problem with this system and where it breaks down compared to a console, especially, is the quality of the experience is going to vary.
Right. That's the real problem. Yep.
Yeah,
if you've got gigabit bandwidth with zero latency, you're going to love it.
Yep. And but you could have great bandwidth, bad latency, and it's going to be terrible. You could have okay bandwidth and great latency, and it's
Microsoft, when it does its version of this, will it do it? The other thing I saw as a plus for Google is it'll run on a Pixelbook, as you pointed out, a Chromecast Ultra plugged into a TV. Is Microsoft going to do something like that, or will you have to have?
So I don't know exactly the scheme Microsoft's going to use. What they're talking about is cross-platform. One of the things we'll talk about a little bit more later is, Microsoft is bringing Xbox Live to mobile and to Nintendo Switch. It's sort of like the when Apple was talking back at CES about bringing iTunes and AirPlay to smart TVs and to smart TVs. I was saying at the time, and we're starting to see that this is true, that for this to really work, it needs to be everywhere. And everywhere includes things like Roku or Amazon Fire TV. Like, you need to get this thing out everywhere. What you don't want to do, and this is something Lorraine just was talking about, is create an entirely new client on every single platform on Earth, right? You don't want to have to natively support Samsung smart TVs, LG smart TVs, Roku, you know, every single thing on Earth. Like, it'd be really complex. And so what you need is some simple remote app, and you're doing everything up in the cloud.
It's called your browser. That's the beauty of this.
Google has, that's the thing. So the one thing Google has almost lucked into in a way is this Chromecast or Google Cast technology, which is built into their browser, is way better in my mind than what the Microsoft's equivalent is, the Miracast technology that's in Windows 10. It allows them to make that the bar. Like, as long as you can run that browser on your device or have a Chromecast, which is an inexpensive sub-$100 4K HDR kind of streamer, then you can play these games. It's smart. Microsoft is going to have to abstract it to that same level. They can't have a rich client of any kind anywhere, right? It has to be this exact thing. So I don't know exactly how they're going to accomplish that.
This will be an interesting test of the new Microsoft and the idea of the unsiloed Microsoft, because the business interests at Microsoft will say, oh no, you got to have it run on Windows or Xbox. It has to run on our products with a rich client, and it can't possibly run on an Android phone or a Chromebook. Chromebook will be the test. If it runs on if Microsoft solution runs on a Chromebook, that'll be the test.